All right, it is 10 o'clock. Everyone's find a seat, please. And we will bring the March 9th, 2023 Space Coast TPO Governing Board meeting to order. If you'll just stand and please join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Hoorah!
Thank you, Mayor. Laura, would you please conduct a roll call for a quorum?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Allender?
Here.
Barton?
Here.
Cole?
Here.
Felix? Feltner?
Here.
Forrester?
Here.
Foster? Hanley?
Here.
Goodson?
Here.
Koss?
Here.
Medina?
Present.
Minus?
Here.
Pritchett? Robinson?
Here.
Sanders? Tobias? Willis?
Here.
Young?
Here.
Zonka? Are there any alternates in attendance? Seeing none, that does establish a quorum, Chair.
Thank you very much, Laura. Public comment. Anyone wishing to make a comment on an item not on the agenda should complete a speaker card. Do we have any public comment cards? No, we have none. All right. For an item on the agenda, please fill out a speaker card and give it to a member on staff, and you'll be called upon when the meeting is discussed. Item 3, Executive Director, Georgiana.
Good morning, members. Very good to see everyone. I wanted to make a couple of announcements. We have heard that the restrooms are out of order, and a plumber has been called, although I think Travis just mentioned that the men's restroom does seem to be working, so thank you for your patience. Also, I wanted to mention we've hired Ant Farm Media to record and stream our meetings moving forward. And they have provided new microphones that are much more sensitive and will remain live throughout the meeting. So the mics are hot. So if you have any sidebar conversations, you may want to go to the back of the room or take them outside. But we're really happy because, you know, we stream our meetings to our YouTube page, and we want to have a very professional, quality recording that our citizens and others can go to and listen to. So we're very happy to have them. I also wanted to mention one of our TPO members has been hospitalized. I know Councilmember Foster. We're praying for his health, and Mayor Medina, if there's anything that we can do, please let us know. We wish him and his family the very best. In your package are the MPOAC policy positions. And also at your place is a copy of all of the transportation-related bills that have been filed by the legislature so far. It is a little package here. I know it's not the easiest to read, but as you browse through those bills, when you have an opportunity, let me know if there's anything that you would like us to follow up on. Again, Mark Reichert, the MPOAC director, he does monitor those bills on behalf of all of the MPOs and TPOs throughout the state. So just let us know if there's any questions or concerns that you have.
Excuse me,
And, yes, ma'am.
can we have this emailed to our accounts, because this is a little hard
Absolutely.
to read. It'd be a lot easier for us to go through.
Very good. We'll make sure that that gets emailed to you all today. Also, I wanted Abby to come up and give us a update on our public outreach and engagement.
Good morning. My name is Abby Hemingway, and I'm the Public Information and Outreach Manager for the Space Coast TPO. And I did just want to update you on a few activities that we've been doing in the community, some things coming up on our radar. So just to jump into it, I did just want to touch on a few things that happened in February that I think are noteworthy for the TPO. It was a very busy month talking up resiliency. Our senior transportation planner, Sarah Crom, participated in multiple conversations throughout the region, speaking about our transportation resiliency master plan. She first served on an amazing panel of experts at the Women in Transportation Central Florida Chapter's February program, and then she spoke at the American Society for Highway Engineers Central Florida Transportation Summit. These speaking engagements can really showcase that the TPO is a thought leader when subject in transportation resiliency. We've also been supporting our local 2023 Running Zone Spring into Fitness Challenge, formerly the Mayor's Fitness Challenge, by attending events to pass out safety goodies and to talk up traffic safety. Earlier in February, we attended the Senior Walk at the Merritt Island Square Mall, where we passed out education resources, safety goodies like backpacks, high visibility, safety vests, reflective bands to mall walkers, but also to shoppers. It was a really great event to talk to other people who were passing by and to learn more about what we do. I also wanted to touch on a few things that actually happened this past week. It was a really crazy week for outreach. I wanted to give a big shout out, she's not here today, but to our education and outreach coordinator, Shelby Villatoro. She worked with our local municipal partners to coordinate and support efforts for local outreach. On this past Thursday evening, we attended Jupiter Elementary's Dr. Seuss Night in the city of Palm Bay, where we fit and distributed 50 free helmets for students. On Friday, we participated in the City of Cape Canaveral's Friday Fest, where we passed out reflective armbands, bicycle lights, and we fit 60+ free helmets for adults. So thank you to Councilmember Willis for inviting us out in the city as well. And on Saturday, we supported the 2023 Running Zone's Spring into Fitness Walk with the Mayor in the city of West Melbourne, where we passed out backpacks full of safety resources, safety lights that were contributed by our partner Health First. And then coming up, hopefully you know this already, but March is Women's History Month, and I thought it'd be fun to just share a little bit of trivia. Did you know that a woman invented the windshield wiper? A woman also played a critical role in the development and construction of the Brooklyn Bridge. And as far back as history takes us, women have really been pioneers in transportation, from inventors to entrepreneurs to civil engineers. So we'll be using our social media outlets to highlight some of those amazing women who have contributed to history. March is also Florida Bicycle Month, so we've kicked off the month-long celebration supporting the Florida Bicycle Association, and this month really encourages bicycling, recognizes our role in providing transportation and recreation to millions of Florida's residents and visitors. And so we'll be promoting topics such as Brevard's Best Trails, youth bike safety during spring break, bicycle laws, helmet fit, and we'll also be collaborating with local partners. And at the end of the month, you can see here, we'll be partnering with FDOT District 5 to highlight safety improvements within the resurfacing project of US 192 from I-95 to Babcock Street. They have a really cool pilot project down there that is highlighting safety along the corridor. One of the primary types of crashes along this corridor involve bicyclists being struck by motor vehicles at a driveway or side street locations because the driver is not looking right for those pedestrians and bicyclists. So we're gonna be doing a pop-up event down there to raise awareness, not only for motorists to be looking for bikes and peds, but for bikes and peds to make sure that they're being alert and also looking for motorists. And then Shelby from our office will also be leading a great webinar called Walking Safely, and it'll talk a little bit more about moving, boosting your health, and how sometimes you might not know where to cross. How can you do it safely? So she'll be talking about some of the benefits, how you can incorporate walking into getting around your community, and how, most importantly, how to do it safely. So please join us for that. We are going to put the details on our social media channels and on our website. And lastly, just a few more things coming up on the radar for social media. We know that daylight savings is happening soon. This is a good time to check for vehicle recalls. Also, St. Patrick's Day, it falls on a Friday this year, so we will be working with our local law enforcement to make sure that we're pushing out safety messages all weekend long, because we know that the celebrations will go past Friday. And then April is Distracted Driving Awareness Month. We know that this is a key behavior that is driving some of those crashes, unfortunately, so we will be definitely promoting safe driving habits and putting down the phone. And as always, if you're not following us, please make sure that you do on social media. We share some really great content out there.
Great. Thank you, Abby. I appreciate that. Also, I'd like to introduce one of our a new member of our TPO family, Zoe McNeely. Zoe, if you want to say hi. She's a UCF graduate, and so we think that her skill set is really going to serve us very well and help us and accomplish our strategic plan goals. So welcome, Zoe. And then my last item, we're honored to have Nicola LaCourie. She's the Executive Director of the Florida Turnpike Enterprise. And at your place, she wanted to share with you a fact sheet, and so you have that at your place. and it's on the 528 East Beach Line project. This is just for your information. And it consists of replacing the existing intelligent transportation system along 528 from 520 to just east of Industry Road. The Turnpike Enterprise owns that section of 528. It also consists of new roadway lighting system that's going to be installed at the Industry and 528 interchange. And the project spans both Orange and Brevard County and includes installation of the fiber optic backbone for the ITS system, conduit, cabinets, dynamic message signs, closed circuit TVs, and it's also converting the ramp plazas at the Beach Line and 520 to an electronic toll collection. So this is a major project that's going to improve safety, response time, and enhance mobility. So it's going to be a very valuable project that will be coming into Brevard County. Nicola's here if you have any questions about that. And Madam Chair, that concludes my report.
Okay, thank you very much, Georgiana. Technical and Citizens Advisory Committee report. Again, Georgiana.
Yes, the CAC met on Monday, and you have a summary of actions at your place, as well as attendance record. And the TAC-CAC approved all of the action items that are before you today, and that is the TAC-CAC report.
Thank you, Georgiana. The Bicycle Pedestrian Trails Advisory Committee report. Sarah, thank you.
All right, good morning. I'm Sarah Crom, Senior Transportation Planner. As I reported back in February, the BPAC met on January 30th. At the time, we didn't have draft minutes prepared, so they are now provided in your agenda package. We have been working on our BPAC strategic assessment, where essentially we're digging in and looking at the role and the strategic benefits of that the BPAC could serve for our governing board. And so our consultants have completed their interviews with our BPAC chair, BPAC vice chair, as well as also our executive director, Georgiana. They're currently developing a survey, and the survey will be sent out to all of our boards and committees on Monday. We really want to encourage every single member to take the survey. It's 7 questions, and so it really should take you no more than 5 minutes, but that's 5 minutes that can really help lead the direction of this organization. So please take the survey. The survey results will then feed into a workshop that we'll be conducting with the BPAC on March 27th during our regularly scheduled meeting. So we'll dig in with what the strategic direction of the BPAC. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Sarah. Next is the Transportation Disadvantaged Local Coordinating Board report. Terry.
Good morning, everyone. Terry Jordan, Space Coast Area Transit. My report this morning is on the local coordinating board for the transportation disadvantaged. I always like to preface that this is the group of individuals that are unable to utilize our fixed route services. So those that are getting trips to places like dialysis, medical appointments, and things of that nature. So the board met on February 24th. Items that were presented and given to the board were very similar to those that were given to the TPO board on the 7th meeting here, including the items that were taken to the Board of County Commissioners for Space Coast for the FY23 fiscal year, such as the PTAS that is included in your packet, and our request for additional vehicles to provide service and replace aging and vehicles that have met their useful life. Items that were discussed for action has been the need to increase the membership, and we are working with the TPO team to actually recruit members to serve on the LCB board, and also for individuals that are meeting their term limits, replace them, because the TPO board here has to actually install members that are not or agency driven. So for example, a member that serves as a person over 60 or individual that is a disabled representative or representative for the blind community, those individuals have to be determined by the TPO board. So we're going to meet, we're going to have a committee to discuss potential applicants and then present those to the board, who will then determine the individuals that will serve on the LCB. Those are the major things that were discussed and that were done at the recent meeting. If there are any questions, I'll be glad to answer.
Any questions for Terry?
I have one quick question.
Yes, Mr. Forrester.
Kind of on a different topic, but there's a bus stop near the entrance to my neighborhood that has no bench, no nothing. And it seems like for the last few weeks, I keep driving by there, and there's people sitting in the grass waiting on the bus. And do we have a policy on trying to put at least a bench at every bus stop or something for people?
So there is no policy of putting a bench at every bus stop. However, there are requirements. So one of the major requirements is that the location has to be made compliant. Because if it's an area that has just a grass area or just dirt, we can't just typically just drop a bench. And you may have seen it in other places, and that was a bench advertised that has done that throughout the county. However, for Space Coast Area Transit to install the bench, or any of our partners, whether it be a municipality or as in Palm Bay, there's a bench vendor that's coming in to do in Rockledge as well, that has also submitted a plan to install benches in different locations. They have to install a bench pad, which you can then install the bench on. So there's a couple of steps that have to take place prior, if you do it in the proper and official manner. If you want to give me the location, we could look into seeing about if there's an opportunity there. If there's a sidewalk, and in a lot of cases they install a small pad on the back of sidewalk if there's right-of-way available, and then the bench can be put in on that. So there are several different factors. Some make it more, some are easier to do than others, I'll put it that way. So I can speak to you afterwards and we can determine the location, and then I can follow up with you directly to let you know what the opportunities are to install a bench, because one of the things are we want to ensure our customers do have the ability to get to the stop safely, but also when they do, that if there are any amenities that can be installed, we do as best as we can.
It just struck me, during the rainy season, that's going to be a problem there. But and I understand we can't put in a kiosk with a roof and everything at every bus stop, but it seems like we ought to at least be able to give them a place to sit, hide under their umbrella, or
As much as
get
I
out of the grass.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, yes. Lorraine.
Yeah, Terry, so the new board members, do we have the opportunity to submit names, applications, suggestions?
So the initial process will be for individuals that are serving on their agencies. So those will be supplied by the agency that they represent. Individuals, like I mentioned, that are serving for positions that are not agencies, we're, like I said, working with the TPO staff to then have the application process. So if you have an individual that, yes, there will definitely be an opportunity to submit an application for that individual. The staff will then work to look through those applications and determine best candidates, which will then be brought back to this group to then determine who the actual individual will serve on the board would be.
And so who do we talk to? Submit it
At this
to the
point-
staff, TPO staff, or?
I'm looking to make sure, because we recently had a meeting on this, so I'm guessing that it will be a matter of the TPO staff. And then we'll be having our small committee that will determine who will be serving. So, yeah, TPO staff would be best.
Okay.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. And Debbie will probably best answer that question.
Hi, Debbie Flynn, Transportation Planner with Space Coast TPO. First, we're currently going to be updating the policy for TDLCB. Our small group is reviewing it right now, and then it will be sent to our attorney to review. And we had a nominating committee within that policy, and it didn't explain who that nominating committee was and what that entailed, so we're updating that now, and then whoever seat is available will be able to submit that to the nominating committee, and it will be hopefully one member from TPO staff, the chair, and as well as a staff member from transit. So that would be our nominating committee. If this policy gets approved, that will be coming to the board to be approved in the future.
Okay, great.
Yep.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Terry?
Thank you all.
Thank you very much for your report. Florida Department of Transportation report, Rakenya. Thank you.
Good morning, Rakenya Henson from Department of Transportation, District 5 office. You have information at your packet for the construction report that provides information on the most, well, it's not the most up-to-date. The most up-to-date information, as I've mentioned before, is always found on CFL Roads, the DOT website that gives you the most current information, and that's www.cflroads.com. The information that you have in your packet was current when the packets were printed. But if you have any comments or questions that you'd like for me to take back to the district office, I'd be more than happy to do that concerning any of the projects that are listed. We also have here with us this morning the lead for our Brevard Operations Office, Ms. Suzanne Phillips. So I'm sure she'll be glad to assist as well, but I am available for questions or comments to take back to the district office. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, I've been asking for a year and a half for a sign on 192 coming from the beach side to Melbourne. The directions, nobody knows, there's accidents there, people are trying to get into different lanes. I've been asking for a year and a half. Can you help us for at least a sign? If not, first of all, do a sign so we know what's going on. And then second is to correct that mistake that was done there at the corner of US 1 and 192. But coming from the beach side into Melbourne, can we at least have a sign?
So I just want to make sure I understand. There's two things you're asking: a sign on 192 beachside going into Melbourne, and then what was the second one?
That corner is just a disaster. I don't know who designed it, how they designed it. If you ask anybody from the beach side, they will tell you how bad it is. Being a Melbourne City Council person and then doing what I do, I get people ask me who allowed them to do that. We need to get that corrected. There's only one lane going west, and the rest are turn lanes. It's a bottleneck there. We need to get that corrected. I ask every meeting. I think everybody's tired, but at least give me a sign.
Well,
Go
I'm
ahead.
sorry, Rakenya. Anna was at the last meeting, and she was going to go back. I know that the department was working with the city of Melbourne, potentially on what that fix may be. I think it's a rush hour situation. It's not continually.
Oh, it's pretty continuous.
Okay.
I mean, it's not, I mean, if we went there right now, it's gonna be, especially at this time of the year, oh no, that's gonna be backed up.
Okay. So yeah, Councilmember Hanley does talk about this quite
Every
a
single
bit.
time, and I'll be
so-
talking about it until at least give me
Wait.
my sign.
Perhaps maybe at the next meeting, someone could actually respond or provide some sort of, I don't know that if there's anything for a presentation, but someone could maybe talk about this specifically. I think that would be very helpful.
All right, and I'll take that information
Thank
back
you.
and see what I can find out.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Yes, sir.
Ms. Virginia Rob Medina, City of Palm Bay. I understand that FDOT is reviewing our interchanges, and I see that you're going through the improvements of Wickham Road, and that's warranted. However, we've had a loss of life on 95 with our interchange here in Palm Bay. So I just wanted to bring that to your awareness. I did submit a letter to the secretary, and if you could take that back, we're still in that dire need. Whatever you guys can do to expedite that, we would really appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other comments or questions for Rakenya from Florida Department of Transportation? No?
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rakenya. All right, moving on to item number 4, consent agenda. Georgiana, would you please read the consent agenda out loud for the record?
Yes, the consent agenda, 4A is the approval of our governing board meeting minutes of February the 9th. We also have committee appointments for a appointment for Satellite Beach. Also, we have a housekeeping item. It's our finance and budget. We have our fiscal year 22 fourth quarterly report and our first quarterly report of fiscal year 23. And we also have an operating budget amendment that with the closeout of our fiscal year 22 operating budget, there was a balance forward, and this amendment reconciles our grant and our operating budget. So we are asking for approval of the consent agenda.
May I have a motion to approve the consent agenda? Motion by Maya, second by Mr. Willis. Thank you. All those in favor? Aye. Those opposed? Thank you. Motion passes. Thank you very much. Next, we'll move on to item 5, acceptance of the 2022 Florida Department of Transportation Annual Certification of the Space Coast TPO. Rakenya.
Good morning again, Rakenya Henson, FDOT District 5 office. The information that you have for the annual certification, we do not have a formal presentation. However, I just want to go on record and commend the TPO staff of the excellent job that they do on a daily basis. The annual certification is really, the name is kind of misleading. The joint certification is really a risk assessment. Our office looks at their invoices, their supporting documentations, are the costs allowable, are they reasonable, are they necessary? It's a small look at what they do on a very daily basis. I'm happy to say that it's no surprise that they ranked at 100%, meaning all of the boxes were checked, and it's just a testament of what they do every day. They do a fantastic job. They're one of the organizations we don't really have to worry about because we know that they're going to do an excellent job. Everything that we've asked them to do, they produce excellent products. So I just wanted to take the moment to say, job well done to both Georgiana and to the staff. I don't cringe when I see them calling on the phone. But the risk assessment, officially, they're designated as a low risk. As I said, it's an assessment where you're ranked low, medium, or high risk. They're ranked at a low risk. We can't give them anything higher. And we were able to check all of the boxes. As I said, they had 100% accuracy. So the joint certification is just a testament, like I said, of what they do every day. It's joint because it is the opportunity for some dialogue between the department staff and for the TPO staff, for them to critique us just as much as we're critiquing them. We're looking at their invoices, but we're also asking for their input on how we could make our processes better. So it is that opportunity on an annual basis for us to kind of critique each other. But again, just a testament to the excellent job that they do, and congratulations on another year of certification on your risk. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Virginia.
Thank you. Item 5B, this is going to be a roll call vote. We're going to look for approval of Resolution 23-15, the 2045 Long Range Transportation Plan Amendment Number 3. Debbie?
Yes, good morning. Debbie Flynn, Transportation Planner with Space Coast TPO. There are occasionally times when the Space Coast TPO may find it necessary to amend the Long Range Transportation Plan outside the 5-year update cycle. Today, the Space Coast TPO is requesting approval to amend 3 projects within the Long Range Transportation Plan. The first project is the design of Malabar Road widening has moved into the first 5-year period of the Long Range Transportation Plan. The second project is updating Ellis Road widening construction to reflect current funding and estimates of $75,801,490. And the third project is Space Coast Area Transit's COCO transfer station's design for $200,000 has been added to the Long Range Transportation Plan. These changes do not impact the cost feasibility of current or future projects. The Space Coast TPO seeks to amend the 2045 Long Range Transportation Plan by Resolution 2315. The 2045 Long Range Transportation Plan Amendment Number 3 in order to comply with planning consistency requirements. An amendment requires public review and comment in accordance with the public involvement process for long-range transportation plan amendments. Such notice was conducted with the posting of the Space Coast TPO March 9th, today's meeting notice, and included with meeting agenda posted on the Space Coast TPO's website on February 27th. Space Coast TPO is requesting your approval of Resolution 2315-2045 Long Range Transportation Plan Amendment Number 3. And I'm here to answer any questions you may have.
Questions or comments for Debbie? All right. Motion to accept Mayor Medina and second Mr. Willis. Thank you very much. All those in favor? Aye. Those opposed? Oh, I'm sorry, that's right, we're doing a roll call. Thank you. I said it and I'm reading it and it still says roll call. Yes, Laura, would you please?
Thank you. Allender?
Yes.
Barton?
Yes.
Cole?
Yes.
Feltner?
Yes.
Forrester?
Yes.
Hanley?
Yes.
Goodson?
Yes.
Haas?
Yes.
Medina?
Aye.
Minus?
Aye.
Robinson?
Yes.
Willis?
Yes.
Young?
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. We'll move on down now to item 6, presentations, connecting communities. Tara McHugh.
As Tara.
Excuse me, sorry, I hate to interrupt. The certification was under actions. Is there any way we could get a motion and a second to accept our certification?
Motion to approve.
Second move.
All right, we have a motion by Koss and second by Mr. Allender. Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Laura. I just wanted to introduce Tara. She has been the executive director now since March of last year, but she's been with the East Central Florida Regional Planning Council for almost 20 years. And so we work very closely with Tara, and she has been an excellent partner, not only for Brevard County and the various cities, but for the TPO. So thank you for being here.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me here. Today I'm going to talk about connected communities and the role that transportation and land use together play in creating these great places. So real quick, the Regional Planning Council, we are one of 10 RPCs across the state. I have to say we probably have the largest area and the most diverse region in the state of Florida. We range from Brevard County all the way up to Marion. So we have coastal communities, urban, and really rural areas as well. What we do at the Regional Planning Council is we really are an extension of your local government. We are here to serve you and fill in gaps and help together as a region address some of those issues and challenges that obviously go across municipal and county lines, as well as work on some local projects as well. The way we approach things and everything that we do at the Regional Planning Council is through a really integrated approach. Whether or not it's community development, economic development, emergency preparedness, health planning, we look at things across all the lenses so that we can make sure that we're really moving forward our 2007 regional vision. So for those of you who were here during that time, you may remember that effort. It was really community driven. Those of you who were not, happy to answer any questions around that. But really what we wanted to do was change the direction that the region was going. We were seeing that commute times were increasing, our vehicle miles traveled, as well as the consumption of our of our land as well as water. So we really wanted to create a vision that moved away from that direction and really focused on putting development in our already existing urban cores and then connecting those communities through multimodal transportation options, creating development, the right development along those corridors, which in turn would take pressure off of our countryside and our agricultural resources, as well as increase our opportunity for conservation areas. So the way to do that is really integrating land use and transportation together in conversations and the way that we're approaching things. Moving away from our disconnected residential communities, as well as the disconnection between our residential areas as well as our commercial and economic cores. So In order to do that, we hear a lot about, we want multimodal transportation, and then on the flip side, well, we don't have the density, we don't have the land uses to support that. So bringing our transportation and our land use professionals together through scenario planning to really understand what we need and where, and how to make that happen in order to drive that multimodal transportation, whether or not it's bus routes, or fixed transit like trains, or even just through our connected street patterns can really help move the needle in terms of this. There's a lot of conversation, and there was some at our the TAC and CAC meeting around EV infrastructure and cars, and while that's all well and good, whether or not everybody had one, you're not taking cars off the roadway. You're not decreasing your travel time. You're not decreasing those vehicle miles traveled. And the way to do that really is through that multimodal approach. And so really making sure that we're integrating that land use and community planning can really create more resilient and connected communities, financially sustainable communities, which I'll talk about in a second, and increase our accessibility across our region. So I'm going to give some examples outside of Brevard County about how some of the other communities in our region are really approaching this. When it comes to financial sustainability, Osceola County had a couple questions. Are the decisions we're making really financially feasible in the long term for our county? Right? They were already falling behind in the maintenance of the infrastructure they already had on the ground. So as they start approving more development, with more infrastructure, including transportation, they were afraid of falling even more behind and not being able to keep up. So they underwent a process of looking at where they are, where they need to be, and creating strategies to change the direction of the county. The report is linked on the bottom. It's really interesting, walks you through the process and the direction that they're starting to go. One of the things that they really looked at was that your road connectivity and your land use patterns really can impact the cost of your services, right? How much does it cost to pick up 50 houses of garbage in an hour versus a half an hour, right? Being more efficient in that. They also talked about mosquito spraying. They found that because of the disconnection between some of their residential areas and their commercial areas, it was easier to spray on foot than in a vehicle. So all of that ties into the cost of your services and therefore a long-term financial impacts on your community. They were also realized that the way that they were looking at paying for those transportation impacts related to development was not covering the long-term costs of that development. So they really realized that they needed to start looking at a new way of paying for that infrastructure that was related to development. So essentially, and like I said, really take a look at the report. It's pretty amazing. Essentially, they really needed to figure out ways to create interconnectivity, right? Better transportation patterns, better multimodal, and then really better land use and tying it all together, which again goes to having the transportation and the land use people at the table together having some of these conversations. Sunrail has been a huge player in Central Florida, trying to get people out of their cars and really promoting some economic development in some key communities. Lake Mary is one example. They were the first suburban TOD development within the Sunrail system. And when it didn't happen overnight, right? And they still continue to try and move forward some activities along in that area. But when they knew that this was coming and there was all that rumbling, they said, this is a great opportunity for us to expand our downtown master plan to incorporate Sunrail. It'll give us a lot more opportunities to bring in housing and to bring in jobs. And that's what they did. And then they took advantage of the downturn of the economy to buy up some property for a reduced price. And so through that, they were able to put in some of the development that has come up around in that TOD area. So they have a multifamily residential unit, which is here on your screen. They also have their first vertical mixed use development, which the developer came to Lake Mary only and strictly because of Sunrail. They said they would not be having conversations within that city if Sunrail was not there. So that was a great opportunity. And through that effort, they were also able to take other properties off the market and really start to spur that economic development within the area. And then through their downtown master plan, they're still, working on moving that forward, and they're trying to create pedestrian environment to get people from Sunrail into the downtown, and also incorporate a kind of like a stair-step park system. So that'll be more inviting for people to come in. Another one, oh, and real quick with that, that's all the multifamily that they're doing in that area. They are suburban, they realize that, they don't want to be this, full of multifamily residential in that area. They said 1 to 2, they have it, and from what I've been told, that's all they're looking at. Longwood is another suburban area in Seminole County along Sunrail. They also have that multifamily. They have a historic downtown that's right across the street. And so I'm not going to focus on the Sunrail part, but for them, a big issue was the 4-lane roadway, Ronald Reagan, which separated their historic downtown and some economic generators like their hospital from Sunrail and this multimodal, multifamily development. So they've really been focusing on complete streets and really making a pedestrian-friendly environment, linking that area and all through their downtown and to the hospital and park that apparently is really buzzing with lots of events and beer gardens and all this other fun stuff. So they're getting people to use Sunrail to come and visit. So for them, it was really more about the street system and making that the complete streets and pedestrian environment within that system work for the land uses. So these are just some examples of how transportation and land use can work together, potentially for attainable housing opportunities, getting people out of having to have a car and pay for the car payment and the insurance, multimodal mobility options, stormwater management. Both land use and transportation need to mitigate stormwater. So if there's an opportunity to work together, have a bigger return on your investment in that area, that's great. Opportunities for economic growth and community resilience. While the other two Sunrail areas were more suburban and they really had to be creative about fixing things or getting things to fit, DeBerry really was a different beast. So they had basically a blank slate, and they wanted to use that as an opportunity to create a main street and a downtown because they don't have one. So when the talk of Sunrail was coming in, they too said, let's plan our downtown, let's figure this out. And oh, hey, we have 2 trails that access over 600 miles of trails across the state, and we have 5 parks. So let's really create this area as an ecotourism generator and bring people into our area as a destination, along with creating opportunities within our community as a whole. The community bought into this, they loved the idea, and so when developers were coming like, hey, let me build a subdivision here and here, they said, no, absolutely not. And so they started to amass all those properties together so that they could actually realize their vision instead of doing it piecemeal. So this is just really their vision for the area. You can see all the opportunities that they have there, and it's going to be really interesting to watch all this play out. They have a new park they're developing right along the St. Johns River as well to really bring in more people. And this is a little bit closer up and some renderings of the variety of housing options that they're bringing in. They're having mixed use, vertical mixed use live-work units, so they really can have people live where they're working or rent to people who are working in the shops below. So DeBerry wasn't the only one who was looking at the trails as economic opportunities as well, and we've heard about Dunedin and Winter Garden. Claremont is one in Lake County, so I'm trying to hit the different counties here. They are right in the middle of the Coast to Coast Trail, and they have embraced that with this meet me in the middle concept and really use that as an opportunity, like those other examples I gave you, to revitalize their downtown. They even created a legacy loop, which brings people from the trail into their downtown. They updated their land development codes so that people, businesses in the downtown could utilize and live with that trail and with that transportation option. So I've been there on a Tuesday night at a council meeting, and the place is buzzing. It's always busy. Everything's open, and there's lots of people and lots of bikers, lots of people still on the trail. But for Claremont, it was not just their downtown. They have really interesting land uses along the trail that utilize the trail and are huge partners with the city in creating this community asset of the trail. That's the way that it's looked at. So there's South Lake Hospital that's right along the trail and are huge partners, and they continuously use the trail and help sponsor events along it. There's a Lake Sumter Community College, and they have an Olympic sports training facility. So a training facility along a long distance trail that has access to the East Coast and the West Coast. That was a huge opportunity for that business. So Claremont is really utilizing this area, their downtown as well as areas along the trail to bolster economic impact within their community. So today we talked about the role that connected street grids and patterns and linking that with development can lead to better financial sustainability within a community. We've talked about trails, we talked about fixed Sunrail, so there's all these opportunities around transit. It's not just Sunrail, great, you know, and in Central Florida, we have all these other opportunities of linking and connecting communities through transit and better planning them. So 5 main takeaways from all of this is really making sure that we're looking at transportation and land use together so that it's a less economic strain in the future on our local communities. We really need to start maybe looking at new ways of considering the cost of development, right? And the economic, the cost of the long-term maintenance of those transportation facilities and other infrastructure, and whether or not what we're having developers pay now is really what it's going to cost in the future. Advancing multimodal options really require appropriate land use decisions. So I talked about that scenario planning, getting the planners and the transportation people in the room together, figuring out what's really going to drive it, and then local governments changing their land uses to move that forward. And then also, especially along in Brevard, along the coastal areas, really having the transportation and the land use people together on the same page about how they're going to be addressing future conditions in their planning. Ultimately, it's about breaking down the silos and getting everybody in a room, working together, taking advantage of opportunities to create the great places that we are envisioning for the future of Central Florida. That's all I have.
That was excellent, and we didn't even have notes, and you got to the
I
end.
practiced a lot.
You did all of that. That was excellent. Are there any comments? Thank you, Ms. Goss.
Thank you, Tara, for everything you do. Could we have this presentation? Because the notes, the summary part, I'd like to take this back to council. And
We will
summary.
email that out along
Okay,
with
great.
the legislation, the list of transportation legislation.
Any other comments from Ms. McHugh? No? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Excellent presentation again, thank you. FDOT strategy plans, A1A to 95, Celine Bounds. Oh, right behind me.
All right, good morning, everybody. Like they said, I'm Celine Bounds. I'm with the Florida Department of Transportation in District 5. I'm going to give you guys an overview today of the A1A project or the master plan and some of the resurfacing projects that are in your area. All right, recap, A1A, the overview, we'll talk about the master plan and then the 3 Rs. So first, we just want to kind of lay out what the presentation is going to have. We're going to have the discussion on the master plan, explain to you what the visions, the goals, and the way we're going to approach that and the methodology. And then as well share with some of the resurfacing projects and the safety projects you guys have along or intersecting with A1A and the PMs on those projects. So if you needed to contact them with a question or you wanted to know more about it, you'll have their contact information. So the A1A master plan, really we wanted to take an opportunity to put ourselves in your guys' shoes. We wanted to understand this corridor. We understand that it's important to everyone who lives along the corridor, as well as people who travel here. You guys have a variety of transportation options, you know, with your Space Coast as well. So you bring in tourism for your beaches, tourism for the Space Coast opportunity. So we wanted to understand this is an important corridor for everyone, whether you live here or you're traveling, and then that each area has a unique community involved in it. So not every area is served the same way, and not every road has the same needs. So during this, we took that kind of approach, and then we stepped back and we looked for opportunities to increase safety, enhance accessibility and mobility, and how to engage you guys. And then we took this information, this was just documentation of existing and an approach method, and then gave that to the PMs for the projects so that they could engage you guys and had this existing information. So for our project, we looked at a lot of different existing features. We looked at infrastructure for vehicles, pedestrians, and bicyclists. We understand that some areas you don't need to serve all 3 methods, or all 3 mobilities. May not be appropriate if you're in a very rural area to have both a bike lane and a sidewalk. but maybe it's different. So we tried to take an approach of exactly what we see out there, the demonstrated need, and understand that. We also looked for public transit opportunities. You guys have your own transit system here, and so where those bus stops were, if we were seeing crossings there, how to consolidate those. We also looked at green spaces. So these are areas in which you have landscaping that either enhances for speed management, or maybe it's an opportunity for a shade tree that enhances the pedestrians' likelihood of using that corridor. We also looked at beach access. This often is correlating with mid-block crossings. So if there's a beach access point across from a neighborhood, we see a lot of pedestrians crossing there, and so we want to make sure we have these opportunities for them to safely cross the road. We also looked at roadway typical, so how wide the lanes were, if there were shoulders, curb and gutter, those type of features, and then the speed. If people are traveling the speed that was posted, or if they're traveling faster, how we could accommodate that to what's safe for all users. One thing, I'll back up. It's important to note is there's 65 miles of A1A within District 5. 32 of that is in Brevard, so you guys make up almost half of A1A. So that's a big deal. It's an important corridor for you guys. So when we went out and looked at A1A in all sections of District 5, we had these takeaways that we took out to the field with us. So the map on the left, you can see that's a heat map, and so the darker the color, so we start from green being very few to no crashes, and then red being the areas where we see a high number of crashes. Usually those we found were at intersections or crossing locations. We looked at pedestrian crashes, bike crashes, and then all fatalities, no matter the mode of transportation. And then we looked at context classification to kind of understand maybe there's some areas, some context of roads that were serving more users, and we saw a higher number of crashes. Overall, the district has noticed a overrepresentation of bike ped crashes in C4 and C3C corridors. So those were areas we definitely took the time to walk through and kind of understand what we were seeing out there and what was happening. We also looked at transit locations. As you can see on the map on the right-hand side, there are a lot of bus stops. And maybe there's opportunity for condensing those or moving them to the same side of the roads to alleviate some of those crossings. So some of the project considerations, we went through how we documented the existing features, but ultimately we want every project, whether it's one that we have a master plan for or it's just resurfacing, we want to make sure we're addressing accessibility for the public so they have safe opportunities to travel. The social aspect, we understand we want to reflect the community's needs and visions. And then environmental, obviously we had hurricanes recently, we want resiliency in all of our projects, we want to be able to withstand natural cycles. And then lastly, economic growth. So we want to make sure that we're providing something that is not going to harm your economic growth, and we're actually putting something out there that supports what you guys have as your roadside usage. So this is some examples of the things we were providing to the PMs for opportunities to engage the community. So on the left-hand side of the screen, these dates are now in the past, but we do have a very robust list of engagement opportunities. So these are things that are happening in your community, such as farmers markets or maybe a beach volleyball tournament, things that we could go out and fit into people's existing schedules. We understand everyone has families and social lives and things that they want to do, and we want to make sure we're not trying to take them away from that and trying to take them on a, maybe after work where they don't have time to really take the time to understand and learn our projects. So we were providing a way for us to fit into the existing schedules. The two visuals in the center, these are 3D renderings. We found that the better your visual is, the easier it is to communicate to the public what you're wanting to do on the project. If I tell you we're going to replace your two-way left turn lane with a raised median and landscaping, that's not going to be as clear to the public as if I showed you what that's going to look like. So we were encouraging the PMs to use 3D renderings to communicate to the public. Their design intent. On the bottom right-hand side, you can see a list. This is not all of the people that we've contacted. This is just a short version to fit it on the slide, but the different stakeholders that we want to involve in the process to make sure we're getting a representation from an agency perspective as well. And then in the top right, that is just a visual. We talked about consistency in projects. If we're having a bunch of A1A projects, it'd be really nice to have a visual that anytime somebody saw a flag or a tablecloth or a brochure that had this symbol on it, they would know it was an A1A project by FDOT. So we talked about how that consistency can help gain community support. So if you had one project that went very well and people felt like they were heard, and then they saw the same symbol on the next project, they're more likely to be receptive and provide feedback. So the end goals with the master plan really was to support the land use and all of the roadway users. Again, we focused on that a lot. We want to make sure we're acknowledging every user on the road, not just the vehicles. We looked for opportunities to align these with the community's vision, and then we looked at upcoming 3Rs in which they can implement this. So again, we passed this information along to our project managers for them to incorporate. Here is a list of some of the projects that are along A1A right now. Some of these are resurfacing, some of these are safety projects, some of them are intersection improvements. And so we have the PMs, the letting dates for them, and then we will have their contact information in case you guys have questions about this. It's not within our district, but I thought it was important to hit on because it is part of A1A within your guys' county. District 4 is doing a bridge replacement PD&E for the Sebastian Inlet. They're looking at addressing the structural and functional deficiencies of the existing bridge, as well as some bike ped improvements. All right, so lastly, my contact information is in the top left, but then the PMs that you saw on those projects, their contact information is also up here in case you guys have any questions for the specific project. And I will open it up for questions on the A1A master plan.
Yes.
I just have a comment. Joyce Barton with the South Beaches Coalition. In your consideration for the master plan, and thank you for putting this together, we've had residents concerned with crossing A1A, especially with the increased density in the South Beaches area, coming across A1A with their families, and we're hoping that, I don't know how far down A1A you go. You're saying that Sebastian Inlet Bridge is not part of your district, but
Correct.
If there could be more of the pedestrian crossings available to us in that area, similar to what you did in Indy Atlantic, Indian Harbor Beach, and Satellite Beach, it would be really helpful to our residents.
Absolutely, we'll take that note back and mention it to the PMs.
Thank you.
And on that note, we did have an initial meeting. So the section of A1A from Oak Street to US 192, which is quite a large section, that is going to be looked at very closely. I know we had Melbourne Beach at the table. There's some improvements that they want to see incorporated into that. So we're working with the department on that, and the construction letting date is October 2025. So we do have some time in the design of that. And then there's another large resurfacing project in the Cocoa Beach, Cape Canaveral area that is not on this list. That's a candidate project. Correct. From State Road 520 to North Atlantic, where the curb and gutter project will be picking up from North Atlantic to George King Boulevard. So I know that's a very important project for Councilmember Willis, the District 2 Commissioner, but we very much want to, the one thing I'll say about the department, they bring everyone at the table in these scoping meetings, and there's an opportunity for, for the local governments to talk about what is the vision for their community. Sometimes the problem is the money and schedules, but the department is doing a really good job of trying to incorporate as much as possible. What we would really like is a curb and gutter to continue that typical section from the north all the way to 520. But whether that can be incorporated into a resurfacing, I don't know. So I'm interested for that scoping meeting when it comes up in the future, because those resurfacing projects is really where you can get a lot of bang for the buck. You've already got a project, you're already going to tear up the road to some degree. So you want to incorporate as much as you can for the community to incorporate that vision.
Absolutely, thank you for that, and that's a perfect segue to we're going to have those meetings coming up, and we really do want to hear your guys' feedback, even if it's not within the scope of resurfacing project. We want to be able to share that with the PM so it doesn't get lost on a future project when that comes up.
Yes, Commissioner Feltner.
About the sidewalk from South Patrick Shores to Satellite Beach on A1A.
Are you asking me if there is a sidewalk or if there's a project?
Is that a future project?
I'm not sure. If you were to send me an email, I can go back to my contact information.
Yes, it is. South Patrick Shores to,
Those aren't the limits.
the limits are a little different.
There's three, I'm sorry.
Yes.
My God.
We actually funded the design of some of those sidewalk projects at the TPO level.
I'm sorry. There's 3 sidewalk gap projects that are currently under design through basically from Pineda all the way down to 518. I can't tell you the exact limits off the top of my head. It's just been a long week, I apologize, but I'd be happy to email you more details.
Thank you. Councilman Minus.
Thank you. Okay, I just want to ask, since we put the, on A1A, the pedestrian crosswalks, I think it was 12, 15, 20, or however many, do we know, has the traffic, are there any traffic accidents or anything that's happened along there? Is that safer now? I know she mentioned about going to the South Beaches. So what we currently have, has that helped? And drastically?
I'm not sure. I would imagine it has. I know traffic ops, when they put crossing opportunities in, they do go back and study the return on investment, how much of an improvement it does make. So they would have that information, and I can have them follow up with you.
On that note, we've talked to Lorene Bobo, which has come here and talked about safety in general. And the one thing she has noted, they are monitoring it very closely. I don't know about any specific accidents, vehicular fender, rear end collisions perhaps. I'm not aware of any pedestrian accidents, but the speeds have definitely slowed down. They think what they have found was at least 10 miles per hour. So folks were going 55, maybe even higher. The speeds have slowed down to perhaps 45, but I think the speed limit is now 35. So they have seen a difference in the speeds, and it's always a challenge. There was some concerns about, has traffic now migrated to South Patrick Drive, and is that going to create a problem there? And they also did some traffic studies on South Patrick here recently, and that didn't seem to be the case. So they were looking at the area, monitoring it, wanting to make sure that they're seeing improvements and being able to report on that. But it would be good if we got a report from Lorene. I think that would be very helpful for all of us to understand. Yeah.
Thank you. Any other comments for Ms. Celine? Yes, Mr. Willis.
In the North Beaches, we very much appreciate you moving Cape Canaveral and Cocoa Beach projects higher up the list, so thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you. Any other comments, Ms. Celine? All right. Thank you very, very much. It was an excellent report. Thank you.
Thank you. I actually have a second presentation.
Oh, do you? Okay.
I do.
Great.
The I-95 portion. So I can reintroduce myself. Again, I'm Celine Bounds with the Florida Department of Transportation. So we're going to give you an overview of I-95, and we're going to talk about the future I-95 master plan. So the agenda for it is we're going to talk about the significance of the corridor. I'm sure we're all aware of how important I-95 is. We're going to discuss some of the past projects, the current efforts, and the future plans. So this corridor significance, again, we're all familiar with I-95. A lot of us probably took I-95 to get here today. It connects over 100 million people. The I-95 goes from Miami all the way to the U.S.-Canadian border. So it services 15 states, and it serves over 40% of the country's gross domestic product. So it is a huge corridor with a lot of value, and then obviously it is an evacuation route, so it's important for the safety of everyone within our state. Again, like we did on the last presentation, District 5 houses a portion of I-95, and we broke it out by counties, so we have a total of 137 miles of I-95 in District 5, but again, Brevard makes up a huge chunk of that. As you can see, Brevard is almost 73 miles of I-95, and this is important because it includes 19 interchanges, which allows you to have access to residential areas, tourism hubs, and the Space Coast facilities. All right. We're going to go over the past projects. You guys are probably familiar with some of these. In the past 20 years, we have widened I-95 to 6 lanes within District 5. We've had additional improvements of new interchanges, modifications to existing interchanges, resurfacing projects, and all of these were completed to provide more direct access to the region's economic centers and to alleviate congestion that's experienced based on growth. One of the key things that I know came up in the last meeting is the Ellis Road interchange. This one was recently completed to give more direct access to the Melbourne International Airport, and the department has seen improvements in the operations of the adjacent interchanges as well, with that one being completed. Some of the current projects that are out there, the northbound and southbound MIMS rest areas, that one is currently in design. Both the Fisk and the Wickham ramps are under construction. The northbound and southbound Fisk and Malabar is in design, and then the Ellis Road widening is in right-of-way. Next, we have one of the resurfacing projects. So like Jordana mentioned earlier, we're doing a Smart Scope process in which we try to engage the communities and talk about this. So to kick off our Smart Scopes, we actually did a pilot. This was for the district's benefit to understand how the process was going to work. This I-95 project was a pilot Smart Scope. This is currently, the consultant is currently in a 6-month analysis period. They'll be looking at improvements to the study area, including updates to the bridge structures, mainline resurfacing, improvements to 9 interchanges, including ramps, signals, and pedestrian features, and lighting. So very robust analysis is happening, and then we're going to see what can be incorporated. All right, next is going to be the MIMS rest areas we talked about a few slides before. This project includes the complete demolition and reconstruction of those rest areas. It's going to provide more efficient truck parking. And then one thing to note is that the southbound will be constructed first. This will happen in fiscal year 25, and then the northbound has not yet set a construction date. So talking about future plans, how this all ties together, we've told you what's happening currently, what happened in the past, but really we're curious how we're going to make improvements in the future. So we have a strategic plan. We have Erica with us, who is the PM for that project. So District 5 has just begun. We're in the beginning phases of the I-95 strategic plan. We're going to be looking for opportunities to understand the long-term vision of the I-95 corridor. This plan will include all applicable modes of transportation, addressing various goals in respects to mobility, safety, resiliency, technology, and community engagement. This area will be looking at all segments of I-95, including the interchanges and the networks surrounding I-95. A little bit more detail on the actual strategic plan. It's anticipated to determine the existing and future operation needs for the interchanges, as well as the main line and the ramps for the intersections. This information will be used to come up with solutions to alleviate today's mobility and safety concerns while addressing short-term and long-term visions. We'll look for short-term implementations. And then for the long-term, we'll look at the managed lanes, the general use lanes, and there'll be consideration for how these can be implemented. We will collaborate with the MPOs, and then you'll also be hearing from Erica and some of her outreach opportunities for how we can implement these and when they'll be scheduled. And then lastly, her contact information is on the screen. My contact information is there as well. I can answer questions for you. If you have any specific questions, she can probably answer those.
Yes, Commissioner Goodson.
Could you, or do you know the schedule for the Fisk completion ramp construction work?
Let me see if it's in my notes.
Or is it on schedule? And also, is it on schedule?
I'm sorry?
It's summer 2023.
Okay, summer 2023. Thank you.
It was really behind schedule there for a while, that's for
Oh,
sure.
yeah. Oh, yeah, I would say it was definitely, I don't think it would make the construction date, but still.
Yeah.
Are you, the second question, Madam Chair, ma'am. Are you familiar from Fisk Boulevard north to 520 is a state road? Would it not be?
I believe
Yes.
so. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
To say I'm not as familiar with the border.
Have you, or did you approve 100% payment for that resurfacing asphalt job?
I'd have to pull up the scope and see what the resurfacing was, but I imagine when we do rehabilitation for roads or resurfacing projects, we deal with the crack and usually mill out the entire crack and rehabilitate the pavement.
I'm sorry, you said what?
When we have resurfacing projects, we have a pavement condition report that comes back and tells us what the crack condition is, and then the mill depth is set by the crack condition to get rid of the entire crack and then refill with existing.
I'm not, my question would be, state-funded job, Fisk Boulevard, did you pay 100% of that contract amount for what the county and the city got as the performance of the contractor?
I imagine if it's a state job, we paid for it. I'd have to look and see if there's any partnering opportunities.
Have you ridden that road and looked at that asphalt job?
I have not. I was not a part of that project.
You might want to.
Okay.
You might want to, because it is, if you paid 100%, we need to definitely talk to somebody, tell us.
Yeah, it's definitely a CI's position to make sure that the plans are constructed per plans. And then when those things aren't done, that it would go into an errors and omissions if the project was not completed.
I suggest all of you ride that road and see what we got as taxpayers. And ask, Go ahead.
I was gonna say, I know that we've communicated with Georgiana over several issues on that road where there were just, 2 weeks after the asphalt was put down, chunks of it this big were gone. And, it was, if it was done according to plan, it was a really lousy plan, I'll tell you that much, because there are waves in the road like this.
That sounds like a construction issue, which I imagine we would have engaged in errors and omissions, which oftentimes takes a long time to be resolved. But Erica, did you catch the road? We'll follow up.
I think that what you did was just gave up, because you did ask the contractor to perform repairs, but the repairs were worse than the original.
I don't mean to put Suzanne on the spot, but we have the Brevard operations engineer here in the room. Suzanne, do you have any information about the contractor?
I was trying to catch the road.
This is Fisk Boulevard, the state road portion. Yes.
East of 95?
From 95 to 520.
Okay.
Yep.
Let me take a look at it.
No,
Please do. Yeah, absolutely.
And I'm not trying to put you on the spot, I'm just curious.
Yeah, we do have requirements for rideability before we finally accept a job. So, it's straight edged and.
Rolling straight edge,
Absolutely.
all that, yes, ma'am.
So
Your
I-
joints have to be closed, But anyway, you'll get to do it again soon.
I will take a look at it.
And I know nothing about what I'm talking about.
Thank you. Yes, Ms. Minus.
I just, under the current projects in Brevard County, I see where Ellis Road is at the bottom. That doesn't mean it is at the bottom. It's still number 1, right?
Correct. I think that was just how it fell on the map with keep preventing the lines to overlap.
Okay, that's how it fell on the map. Okay, I just want to make sure we're still
Yeah.
at the top.
Good job.
I appreciate you asking, making sure that clarification was there.
Thank you.
Any other comments for Celine? All right, thank you.
All right, thank you.
This time, I'm sure this time. Thank you very much. So that was an excellent report. Thank you. Item C, the draft CIS. Georgiana, thank you.
Yes. Well, thank you, members. This will be a very quick presentation, but I do want to, on page 120 of your agenda package, is formal comments in the form of a letter that the TPO staff has sent to the DOT CIS planning manager on the draft CIS plan. And I do have just a few slides here to provide some context for those comments. And so for the new members, what is CIS? It's the Strategic Intermodal System. And it was created in 2003 by the governor and the legislature, and it's to focus the state's very limited resources on facilities, most significant for interregional, interstate, and international travel. And there's 3 types of facilities. There's hubs, corridors, and CIS connectors. And here in Brevard County, our CIS connectors are I-95 and State Road 528. We have a group of, those are our CIS corridors, and we have a group of CIS connectors. The Ellis Road, the connection to the Melbourne-Orlando International Airport, is our number 1 priority. And then it's not just highways, it's airports, seaports, and spaceports. And here in Brevard, these are our CIS hubs. And in fact, in the DOT work program, there's $550 million for space, sea, and air. And that's real money on real projects for CIS hubs here in Brevard County. And so the purpose of the CIS plan is just to continually evaluate the CIS needs, considering the funding revenue, and develop a phased plan for cost-feasible improvements. And so in the first 5 years of that CIS plan, I want to bring a couple things to your attention, and this was my first comment in the letter. The 2 528 widening projects are included, and of course that's from east of Industry, where the FDOT District 5 picks up the ownership from the Turnpike, all the way to Port Canaveral. And right-of-way is now fully funded within the first 5 years for that widening project. So the right-of-way funding in 2026 was moved in, and that's great news because within the 5-year work program, the department can start acquiring the small amounts of right-of-way that they need for this project, and then it will be a construction-ready project for potential grant funding or what have you. And then it also lists Ellis, the Ellis widening, right-of-way funding. It shows that, as well as the new construction funding that we have programmed in fiscal year 2026, $30.7 million, which is great news. What's significant about this is that the construction of Ellis is only partially funded. You saw our long-range plan amendment where we increased that cost estimate due to the cost of materials, and we are at least $45 million short. And the roadway is only 1.7 miles long, and it's very disheartening that the cost estimates are going up and the cost of, the inflation is so bad. So that shortfall is not addressed in the SIS plan, and that's very concerning to us. In fact, to date, we don't believe any SIS funding has been used for Ellis Road. The DOT has used some of their federal funding. We've used some TPO funding. We have TPO funding all over it for everything from PD&E design and right-of-way, and even in construction. The county has put some of their funding on the construction phase. So that is concerning to us, and that is my first comment in the letter. And then in the second 5 years, which is years 6 through 10, there's 2 new additions that they have put into the SIS plan. I-95, it's the 8-laning of I-95 in fiscal year 2032 and 2033. Now, this is just the PD&E phase. This is just the environmental phase. And the segments are from O'Galley to Wickham and then O'Galley to Malabar. And so we're not questioning the need of the 8-laning because when we look at traffic counts, we know that 95 is already getting close to capacity. But what we are questioning is why aren't we looking at the interchanges first? Specifically, Mayor Medina brought up I-95 in Malabar, and that particular interchange does back up, and we feel that it's a safety issue. I know Celine just presented on I-95 and the strategic plan that they're doing, and they're looking at the whole corridor. And the department is being very proactive, but we do want to just bring this to their attention, that the interchanges are the safety issues and really does need to be looked at pretty quickly, sooner rather than later. And that is, sorry, I didn't fast forward, and that is those projects. And then moving on to the 2033 out to basically years 11 all the way to 2025. These projects that I wanted to bring to your attention, there's additional PD&E's studies that they have out, the I-95 widening from Wickham to 520. There's also an I-95 truck parking study from the Indian River County line to the St. Johns County line. Of course, that's needed. We know that truck parking is a serious problem here in Florida, especially in Central Florida. And then there's 2 SIS corridors that are mentioned here, Pineda from I-95 to South Patrick, and State Road 50 in Titusville from I-95 to Columbia Boulevard, which is also a SIS connector going to the spaceport. So these are new PD&E studies in the out years that the department wants to look at. And again, I don't question the need for those particular studies. But this is what I question here is this list of unfunded projects. And both of the 528 widening projects here in Brevard County, the construction remains unfunded. And also the 401 bridge replacement at the port over the barge canal. Design is underway, construction remains unfunded. And these projects are not, they're not in the SIS cost feasible plan, and that means when we develop our long-range plan over the next couple of years, we can't include these projects in our long-range plan as cost feasible. And that's a problem. These are very large projects. They cost millions and millions of dollars, but they're needed. And Ellis, of course, being our number one priority, is not being addressed in this cost feasible plan. And so that is our comments, basically. And the moving forward, Florida forward, we mentioned this at the last meeting. This is fantastic news for Florida. Florida is the envy of the nation when it comes to our transportation system and the amount of funding that goes into the budget. So we're very appreciative of the governor for that, and this additional initiative, which is $4 billion out of general fund going to these very important high priority projects that is going to be excellent for Florida. We didn't get anything. Brevard got left completely off the list. And of course, that was very disappointing. So I bring this up because we are hoping that the draft SIS plan does not account for any of these new projects. And so that we're hoping that there's a rebalance, and perhaps there's going to be additional funding available in the SIS plan once that rebalance happens. So there's no action here. I just feel that it's important to bring this to your attention. Funding is very competitive these days, and we have to be aware of what's happening. And I did speak to Secretary Tyler at our Resiliency Symposium and brought this to his attention. And again, we have formalized it in a letter to send it up to central office. So just wanted to let you know. And, as you all meet with the legislators and share information with them, we would very much appreciate it if you, as they approve transportation funding plans. And again, this moving Florida forward, this is new money that was not even really accounted for in the trust fund. But as additional funding gets approved, think about Brevard. We want to move Brevard forward. And anything you can do to share that information with our legislators, we would be very much appreciative because, again, you can carry the water for us at times. So just wanted to share that, Madam Chair. That concludes my presentation.
Thank you very much, Georgette. It's so very important that we receive that funding. Thank you very much for an excellent report, as usual. All right, thank you. Are there any other comments for the good of the order? We're down here. Yes, Ms. Minus.
Hi there, thank you. Just want to comment and thank our Assistant Director, Ms. Laura, who did an excellent job for the Central Florida MPO. Did a great job on her presentation, and Space Coast is definitely number one, as she had mentioned before, so we're very proud of that. So also just want to ask, and I'm not sure where this falls, for Sorno Road from US 1 to Wickham, Melbourne has had several accidents / fatalities. And I'd like to know if we can have a study or something done to find out why are we having so many wrecks and more. So I'm concerned about the fatalities. We just recently had another one. Someone was trying to cross Sarno, and
So
eventually succumbed.
Yes.
We've had, I think, 4 or 5 just real recently. And I was reading last night about, it was a hit and run, but they did, apprehend the runner. So I'm just concerned if we could, get a study to find out what do we need to, put everybody on bicycles or what. I mean, that's facetious, but to lower the traffic or slow the traffic or find out what we need to do. Why is Sarno Road a fatality trap, if you will?
Yes, ma'am. The TPO actually conducted a study at the request of the City of Melbourne.
Okay.
And now this was probably, gosh, 4 or 5 years ago.
And then we also did the school routes analysis.
Yes, and we also did a school routes analysis at Harbor City Boulevard, Harbor City Elementary. And we did develop a report, and we developed some recommendations. And I know the county was at the table as well as the city of Melbourne, and we need to dust that off and see what got done, what didn't get done. But I will tell you, because we walked it, we were out there, it is very aggressive driving on Sarno. I'd never seen anything quite like it. The speeds were incredible. And so any sort of traffic calming, I think, is definitely what we heard from the citizens.
And also, Melbourne did receive a Safe Routes to School grant. I'm not sure of all of the recommendations that are going to get implemented from those reports, but I can definitely follow up on that.
We will talk to city staff and determine where we need to go next. Because clearly there's still a problem, and we need to do more. So thank you for that.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right,
Ms.
that's definitely great to know. Haven't heard anything, being a council member there. Nothing has come before council on, hey, this is going on or whatever.
It's been a while.
So, okay. All right, so I definitely appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Midas. Joe? Yes? Did you want to say something?
Yeah, I saw the Titusville 405 is 41. It's way down the list, and only $2.2 million, $2.5 million has been allocated to, do some widening of areas on 405. We talked about that, and
Yes.
we're want to try to do some things that see if we can do that, because I remember that at one time, since I've been on the board, it seemed like we were a little bit higher on the list, and we wanted to get 405 done all the way from basically the tower, the water tower from Park, all the way to 405. And the other thing, the other thing is just a question about Ellis Road. I know that every time I hear about that, we are $50 million short. How much of that is being influenced by the fact that to do Ellis Road, you're going to have to get a whole lot of that property that's already industrial, and all of those buildings are going to have to be moved back, or eminent domain is probably the correct word to be used. Is that affecting all of that, or do you know?
The right-of-way funding, the right-of-way acquisition is fully funded. The DOT is sending out appraisals, and as the appraisals get completed and they send it out, they make offers, and they acquire it. There's a process to it. But all of the right-of-way will be certified around the October 2024 time frame. Right-of-way will be done. So the money's there. It just has to go through that process. The cost estimate, until the project is actually let, we're not sure how much it's going to cost. Right now, there's no way of knowing.
No way, because if you haven't gotten the right-of-ways approved
That's right.
completely.
That's right.
No wonder the project is being delayed.
Yes. And sir, State Road 405, South Street widening, you mentioned it being 40-something on our priority list. That sounds off.
I think it's somewhere around 10. I can check when I get back to the
But here's the good news. That is the only roadway on the priority list that we need a PD&E. The only widening on the priority list that it has not even moved into a PD&E yet. So the department has funding categories. So it's the only one that we need to move into the project development and environmental study. And so we think that it will have some movement soon. So thank you for bringing that up. It is very important, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Joe. Are there any other comments? All right, I just would like to remind the group that the entire board here is invited to the next Regional Intermodal Connections Committee. You can see behind me right here. It's going to be right here, and time, place, everything is right here. So please attend that meeting. It's very interesting. This is where we talk about the rail and other things that come along. So if you didn't recognize that, that's what it is. All right, and then our next meeting here is May 11th at 10 a.m. And do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Motion, Ms. Minus, and second by Joe. All those in favor, get up and go. Thank you.
I know.
Yeah.